Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Tana Kostandinidi. I'm an international human rights lawyer. The very interesting case, and make sure that you stay to the end of the video because you're going to find a very interesting twist as to what happened in this case. But I came across it when I was studying law, and especially when I was doing my criminology, my criminology module on my third year, and it was dealing predominantly with the legal principle. I know it sounds like a Latin maxim jargon, but I'm gonna, kind of put it out there. It is the legal principle of dolly in cabak. So essentially what that means is whether you can hold someone criminally liable under the age, let's say 10, 11, 12. So different countries have got different age. So I say that, for example, in the UK, if you are under the age of 10, then you can't be held criminally liable. But if you're above the age of 10, then you can be held criminally liable. And different countries have different ages. If I'm not mistaken, I think Cyprus must be something around age of 15. But if any one of you that is practicing law in Cyprus, correct me if I'm wrong. But it is interesting because it kind of revisited that age limit. And to be honest, I had a case personally that I was representing the defendant in a youth court, and he was 13 years old. And I was surprised to see the way that he was handling, the way he was instructing me to deal with the case, and the things that he was saying. He was very well articulated. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew that he was pleading guilty to the criminal offences, and it was it kind of made me think a number of things when I got back home. But without any further ado, let me get into the facts. This is the case of Thompson and Venables. I'm going to take you back in 1993 on the 12th of February, where Thompson and Venables, which I'm going to be referring as T&V, T&V, where they were in the mall, and they decided on that day, for still reasons unknown 2 decades after, they decided to abduct someone's child. What they were doing on that day, so they were around the mall, they were stealing various goods, and they were just throwing down the escalators just for the fun of it. And just moments before that, before them abducting James Berger, who was just a couple of days before his 3rd birthday, they've chatted a 2-year-old boy. His mother realised that T&V were chatting to the 2-year-old boy, who his sister was also there. So they kind of walked with this 2-year-old boy. The mum came out of the shop and asked her daughter, where is your brother? And she just kind of pointed that they went that direction, getting out of the mall. So this mother kind of run quickly and shouted at her child, and the child got back to her, but T&V kind of disappeared, and they went back into the mall after that. So there are some speculations that they somehow attempted to abduct this child, but they weren't successful. Unfortunately, though, on that day, James' mother was in a butcher store. So she was having a normal day, and for seconds she lost a vision to her child. So James' mother was momentarily distracted, and there is this famous CCTV image, which I'm going to cite somewhere here now for you to see. And what T&V do, they grab James from the hand, and this is kind of the famous picture that has been circulated all around the media, the newspapers, magazines. And this was, and I have my notes here, this was captured on the CCTV, T&V leaving from the mall at 3:42 in the afternoon. And what that shows is that James was led his way out of the mall. Now, from this point onwards, there were a lot of witnesses that testified, and they've seen James either crying. Some of them actually queried T&V, what were you doing? And they would say, oh, it's our brother, or they would take him to the police station. Some of them saw T&V kicking James. So there were various different accounts as to what happened from the moment that he left the store till the point that he was taken to a deserted railway station. When they arrived at the railway station at the embankment, for moments T&V, they hesitated. So they kind of returned back. They made a move to reconsider as to what they're about to do, but nevertheless they still chosen to do those crimes, and I'm saying those crimes because it is a repeated action, and I have here the actions that they've done, which is the what we call in law actus reus. So there needs to be an act, but it also needs to be the intention, especially when we're talking about the charge of murder. Now, what they did is that they turned back and they brutally killed James Berger between 5:45 to 6:30 in the afternoon. TNV have bought a blue paint and they splashed that into James' left eye. They then kicked him and they pummeled him with bricks and stones that they found at the train station, and they have stuffed his mouth with batteries. And finally, the boys hit James with a 22-pound piece of steel that they found on the railway track, and his head suffered 10 skull fractures. In totality, James have suffered 42 injuries to his face, head and body. And after all this, TNV have taken James' body and they've placed it on the railway track for people to believe that it was an accident instead of believing that he was killed. So they place his body across the rail, hoping that they would think that he has been killed by the train. So this is what happened. This is the brutal crime that they've committed against James Berger, and they were found guilty for this offence. But before I get into what happened on the trial, it is quite important to find out how did they come into police attention? How did they find James' body? So James was found dead 2 days after by 4 children that they went to this railway station. And upon examination, when the police came and they found his body was already dead, they couldn't conclude whether which actually hit it was that caused his death. But in any case, he was already dead before he was placed on the railway racks. They also found around that area, they found the blueprint, the blue paint, and they also found the stones. So essentially the bricks and the stones that they used to kill James. Now, at this point, the police officer was very alarmed. So there were 4 children, and what they're trying to do, they're trying to allocate the absentees of children in various schools in the surrounding area. Now, this has caused various children to be identified as the potential killers of James, and actually on that incident there were a lot of parents that they would report to their own children that they've been absent from school on that day. Now, there was an anonymous call pointing towards TNV, but nevertheless the police officers didn't quite believe that it was TNV. The anonymous call said that he saw a blue paint on, if I'm not mistaken, saw a blue paint in either Thompson or Venables. But despite the evidence, the police officers didn't quite believe there was TNV. Now, despite that, they still queried them to come for an interview. On the course of the interview, which lasted for quite a few days, Venables eventually confessed, and he says, "I did kill him. What about his mom? Will you tell her I'm sorry?" Now, on the other hand, Thompson, then, he didn't really confess. He wasn't easy at all, the interview, and he totally denied absolutely anything as to what happened. But in the end, he gave a very detailed account as to what happened to James and what he was was he wearing. Nevertheless, in the whole process, Thompson remained very calm, very composed, and chillingly unfazed. And he earned by the media the nickname as the boy who did not cry. 9 months after TNV, they were prosecuted and they were charged for the murder of James Berger, the attempted abduction, which is the incident that I referred to with the son of the mother, and of course the abduction of James Berger. The case took place, there was a full trial open at Preston Crown Court on the 1st of November 1993, and it was conducted in an adult's trial instead of the youth court. The boys, both of them, TNV, they've pleaded not guilty to all counts, and they were separated from the parents at the day of the trial. During the trial, Thompson came across seemingly remorseless behaviour, and they compared that with Venables' hysterical outburst, and they assumed that Thompson was the instigator of this criminal offence. Now, what is very interesting here is for you to kind of think, and please let me know what your comments are. how would you explain, because there was a psychiatrist and there were authorities and they were not able to come to a conclusion as to the boy's motive in killing James Berger. What do you think? What is your view on this? Do you think a 10-year-old it is capable of forming the intention of killing another child? At this case, the psychiatrist who was appointed by the court to determine that, he said that the two boys knew from the start what's wrong and what's right, and they were not sociopaths. They were not able to uncover the concrete motives behind killing James Berger. The lead prosecutor of this case, who was, I've got him here, Richard Henricks QC, he successfully reducted the principle, which I said at the start of this video, which is known as Dolly in Cabax, which essentially presumes that young children cannot be held legally liable, responsible for the actions pursuant, and there is a section for that. For those who are interested to kind of go into more detail, which is section 34 of the Crime and Disorder Act 1998, the law changed as a result of this case, and they abolished the principle of Dolly in Cabax. Now, in the UK, they have the youngest age of criminality in all Europe, and it has been condemned by the United Nations Committee on the Rights of Children that it was not acceptable by the international community and it was not held to be compatible with international law. Neuroscience, though, suggests that the function as to such a problem solving, the planning and the decision making is only fully developed by the age of 25. So at the age of 10 years old, which was TNV when they committed the offences, the murder, they did not have the ability to fully comprehend the impact of the actions simply because it was not present. And that is from a neuroscientific perspective about the capacity for them to actually commit the offence of murder, abduction and attempted abduction. TNV, they were found guilty for the murder of James Berger, and they were sentenced by the trial judge, Mr. Justice Morland, and they were sentenced and detained at Her Majesty's pleasure under the Children and Young Persons Act 1933. Now, they were sentenced to a secure accommodation with recommendation that they serve at least 8 years and until they attain the age of 18 years old. TNV became the youngest murderers to be convicted in Britain for the past 250 years. I would love to hear your comments about this case. It has been widely kind of reported in various articles, and it has been somehow reason for a number of discussions. I would like to know from you as to whether you believe that the intention as to committing those offences, they can be done so at the age of 10 or even at the youngest age. I would love to hear from you what your views are, and if you're a neuroscientist, psychologist, sociologist, let me know what your thoughts are. I would love to hear from you. Now, there was from there on ongoing cases about not disclosing the identity of TNV, and they've been successful doing so. And it was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, around 2000. So there was an injunction at the family court, and they were successful in doing so. I believe that Venables, he is. I've read a bit on the internet that he's living a normal life, and that Thompson committed further offences, which is related to child pornography. And I think that one of the charges was that he was found in possession of a manual as to how to torture toddlers. But I'm going to bring this video to an end. I hope you enjoy it. I hope that you find insightful points and, kind of give you fruitful thought about people's intention and people's mind and the abyss of the human brain, perhaps. Whatever you do, stay safe. I love you. I wish you peace and love, and I will see you in my next video. Take care, whatever you do. Bye bye.